call this Legislation Committee meeting to order. Board of Alders notice I'll read for New Haven Legislative Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person. Can you hear me? Is this projecting? Doesn't seem like it is.
This one is working.
Is it?
No, it's tapping mine.
The worst thing you can do is tap a microphone. If musicians see you do that, they scream. Okay, how's this? Better? Board of Alders notice New Haven. The Legislation Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Tuesday, August 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Alders chamber, located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, to hear and act on the following items. 1. LM-2026-2073 order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven, approving the request for an exception to the city charter requirement concerning resident elector status for acting assessor Alexander Pullen. 2. LM-2026-0274 order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven approving the request for an exception to the city charter requirement concerning residents elector status for Chief of Police David Zanelli. 3. LM-2026-0275 order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven approving the request for an exception to the city charter requirement concerning resident elector status for the Director of Youth and Recreation, Gwendolyn Williams. 4. LM-2026-0276 order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven approving the request for an exception to the city charter requirement concerning resident elector status for the City Controller, Michael Gormany. 5. LM-2026-0277 order of the Board of Alders of the City of New Haven approving the request for an exception to the city charter requirement concerning resident elector status for the Director of Office Building Inspection and Enforcement, Robert Dillon. 6. LM-2026-0285 ordinance amendment of the New Haven Board of Alders establishing a temporary 12-month moratorium on data center development within the City of New Haven. 7. OR-2026-0019 ordinance amendment of the New Haven Board of Alders to the City of New Haven Code of Ordinances regarding Chapter 32 enforcement by civil officers, creating a uniform process for civil citation enforcement. And 8. OR-2026-0020 ordinance amendment of the New Haven Board of Alders to various sections of the City of New Haven Code of Ordinances, updating all existing procedures for civil citation enforcement. Per order, Honorable Richard Furlow, Chair, attest. Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the Office of Legislative Services, City Hall, 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY TBD. Public comment and or testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. Okay, we have a full night tonight. Let me just do a little bit of groundwork for committee. We're going to change the agenda order to accommodate Corp Counsel. And so we'll hear those two items first when I call. And then since we are doing the ordinances, and I know I'm driving staff crazy by doing all this because we talked about it at length, but I got some calls today, so we have to do some switching up. We will hear after the Corp Council does their presentation, then we will hear the moratorium ordinance. And then we will go into the electoral or into the orders. And I think that will make sense doing it that way because it may be necessary and it will be at my discretion if an alder has any question that may linger outside of the standards that are listed in the ordinance that are of a personal nature, then we will then go into executive session if you feel the need to ask those questions. And so it makes sense then to do that at the end. So what we will do for that, and I'll probably say it again midway through because maybe another person may arrive. We will hear the presentation of each applicant. We will ask questions of that applicant. And if during the course you have a personal question, personal meaning if it's financial or if it deals with family, things that you wouldn't want to have disclosed, let me say it like that, things that you wouldn't want to have disclosed publicly, then I would ask you to hold that question and we will go into executive session if you feel the need to ask that. I also should state that we are talking about whether these applicants fit the criteria of the ordinance. We are not going to relitigate the ordinance and whether or not you like the ordinance, it's been passed. And so our job tonight is to see whether these applicants fit the requirements of the ordinance as it was passed. And I think that's it. I'm going to lean over to Alder Marchand to see if I've missed anything.
Okay.
Yes. And so I will ask the committee to introduce themselves, starting from my left.
Thank you, Mr.
My
Chair.
right.
I'll take the point.
This is left, right?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amy Marks, Ward 26.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Carmen Rodriguez, Ward 6.
Adam Marchand, Ward 25.
Elias Theodore, Ward 1.
And I'm Richard Furlow, Ward 27, and Chair of the committee. We also like to recognize our colleague from Ward 3, Alder Hubbard. Thank you for coming this evening. And I will call for Corp Council, Council Williams for item 7 and 8. And if you would give us your name and address for the record.
Assistant Corp Counsel Sinclair Williams.
Take a promotion.
Not today. Address 380 Mather Street, Camden, Connecticut. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Legislation Committee, and members of the public here as well. A special thank you for accommodating my schedule this evening. It's greatly appreciated. I will just give a brief presentation, not be before you long, but here to answer any questions as long as you would like to ask them. So just, I'm going to speak generally about both ordinance amendments. I'll kind of pause, not just speaking about one, and then we can move on to the other one, or we can ask questions between whatever order you prefer. But the two ordinance amendments that the Office of Corporation Counsel wants to bring before you today are really to solve one main and very large problem with our ordinances, which is that we have hundreds of ordinances that are related to enforcement of the city's laws, but that the enforcement of the city's ordinances right now is fragmented across all the ordinances. So there's hundreds of different ordinances that have various penalties or violations. Many of them have different procedures for enforcing those penalties. Many of them, most of them actually don't have any procedure at all. And this inconsistency creates barriers to enforcement. So the goal of these two ordinances is to create one uniform procedure. This will be under Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances. This will apply to all city ordinances and allow them all to come under one uniform procedure. One caveat that is an exception will be the parking violations, which comes under a different state statute. So the reason why we're putting everything under one procedure is because it's a state statute that applies to all city ordinances except for parking. And then there's a separate state statute, which we're leaving the parking ordinance the same as it is because it is under that separate state statute. So for everything except for parking, we're creating one uniform citation, hearing, enforcement, and appeal procedure under Chapter 32 of the ordinances. This allows us to have simplified enforcement, consistent enforcement, and helps with the future because every time we're creating new ordinances that carry penalties or citation procedures, we're having to create a new procedure. And we've done some even in the past year. There's been more coming up. And so to have one uniform procedure that instead of having to reinvent new ones every time, all future ordinances can just be pointing to and under this procedure that we're creating. So what we're asking for this committee to recommend and for the alders to adopt is two amendments. One to amend Chapter 32 of the ordinances, and then the other is kind of a line by line going through of all the different places in the ordinances where there is some alternative procedure and removing those to point them to Chapter 32. I'll just briefly kind of go through a few of the things in the proposal for the Uniform Procedure Ordinance. So in Chapter 32, Section 32.1 is now, it used to say it only applies to certain designated ordinances. Now it says it applies to all ordinances. And it references the appropriate state statute as amended from time to time in case that statute changes. Section 32-2 states that for whatever ordinance this applies to, the possible penalty is the maximum possible penalty. So whether there is a penalty that the state says is the maximum, that could be the maximum. Or if the city ordinance says, no, the penalty should be less than that, then that will be the maximum. So whatever is higher, either the city ordinance or the state statute, that's what the penalty can be for any given ordinance. And that this, we can enforce these ordinances and use these citation procedures at the same time as pursuing any other remedies under law. That section also removes all of the specific sections that were designated before, because now we're applying this ordinance to, or we're applying this procedure to all ordinances. Section 32-3 is more about the procedures. We've kind of buffed up a little bit the requirements for hearing officers. We have changed the, not really changed, but just taken all of the procedures for notice and hearing and made sure that they actually match with what the state statute says and the language of that statute. That's more or less it. Section 32-4 is preserving the statute or the ordinances that were before designated as nuisances, having that in special category, and then the rest of the sections are no longer necessary. I will pause there and take any questions that you have.
Any questions just yet from committee members? Alder Marks?
Thank you. Thank you.
Just the minute.
Apologies. city law mice. Alderman Marks.
Thank you.
I didn't want to hear your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Attorney Williams. Just so I understand, what we're doing is we're putting one enforcement mechanism in for whatever the violation is, whether it's been a violation of LCI, cutting down of the city tree, passing a school bus. We're now going to have one process, correct?
That's correct.
And just, can you explain?
You can pull that mic in front of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just sort of, can you explain the process that's going to be used as the standardized process? Which current civil violation process does it most closely resemble?
So the process is based on the state statute, section 7-152C. As far as I'm aware, there's really two processes that the city is mostly using. It's parking violations and LCI violations. So this would be mirroring what is currently practiced by LCI. But what LCI does is really just going with what the state statute says, which is have a requirement for a citation to be sent by the city, notifying the person of what the violation is, how much the fine is, and their right to request a hearing. And then if the hearing is not requested, they get the fine. If the hearing is requested within 10 days, then they get a hearing before a hearing officer, and the hearing officer will determine whether they get a fine or not. After that, they have a right to appeal to Superior Court if they choose to do so.
Just to clarify, is there any difference between the proposed process and the process LCI is using right now?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you say a word or two, maybe more than just two, about the ways in which you buffed up, as you said, the requirements for hearing officers?
Sure. We actually stole this somewhat from the city ordinance on parking hearing officers. So the state statute has almost no requirements for what the hearing officers have to be or do. And so we already had this requirement for parking hearing officers and thought it would be good to apply this to all hearing officers, that they need to be at least 18 years of age, that they need to be, in the opinion of the mayor, capable of fairly administering the applicable provisions of the law. So, this might be someone who's an attorney, it might not. In the LCI example, some of our hearing officers are just, they're landlords, or property owners, or people who have experience with property management. And in that way, they understand the housing code and the codes of law that are related to this process. And then the last thing is that we specify that any hearing officer who in any particular case might have a conflict of interest would need to recuse themselves from that case.
Is residency within the city of New Haven a requirement to be a hearing officer?
It is not.
It is not.
The only requirement by the state is that they cannot be a city employee, because that would be a conflict of interest.
Can't be a city employee. So, resident of the state of Connecticut, I presume. Is that in the state law?
I don't believe it is. That certainly could be a requirement that we make, but I don't believe it's a requirement in the state law now.
So to summarize, no, not a city employee, 18 years old or older, in the judgment of the mayor, capable of fairly administering the provisions of law that are relevant, and those are and must recuse themselves if they have a conflict.
That's correct, and they'd be appointed by the mayor.
Right, appointed by mayor, indeed. Okay, thank you for that. Could you say a few more words about the nuisances as a category and how these ordinance amendments affect that, if they do at all?
Sure. I'm probably not the best person necessarily to speak on this, but there's certain violations, certain categories of violations in the ordinances that are deemed nuisances, and that's usually for the purpose of saying that if it is deemed a nuisance, the city can do certain things, such as fix the nuisance ourselves. Like, there's certain situations where if someone is doing certain things, the city can go in and fix the problem ourselves rather than just, saying, okay, we're gonna send you a citation and you have to pay for doing this. Instead, you left your car in the middle of a city park, we can just take it, that sort of thing. I don't know line by line, or have a great example of what all the things are, but that's what the category is for.
Right. The one that comes to my mind, and you should tell me if it's a good example of it, is LCI mows people's yards.
Right.
Sometimes when those yards are out of control.
Right.
And in violation of our anti-blight ordinance.
Right.
But then they charge for those
Exactly.
circumstances.
Mhm.
So this ordinance wouldn't make the hearing officer process available for a resident who says, wait a minute, I don't want to pay for that, I was gonna do that the next day.
No, it would not. So the hearing process is for whether or not the person has to pay a fine just for the fact that they violated the ordinances. If the city, separate from the fact that we're charging them a fine, the city remedies the issue and it's a cost to the city, and the city sends the person a bill, that is entirely separate. That's not something that the person would be able to have a whole hearing process.
That helps me understand that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize our colleague from the 22nd Ward, Vice Chair Morrison. Welcome. Any other questions from committee? Yes. I do want to just ask a couple of questions and piggyback off the colleague that just asked. Are there any hearing officers currently who are 18 years old?
Under the age of 18?
Who are 18?
No, all the hearing officers are well over the age of 18.
But it starts at 18.
That's correct.
Is there any law or any anything restricting or prohibiting us to raise that to 21?
No.
Okay. Is there anything that would impede us from making hearing officers residents of New Haven?
No.
Are there any hearing officers, to your knowledge, that serve as hearing officers who live outside of New Haven?
I don't believe so. I don't know for sure, but I don't believe so.
Just wondering, because if we were to decide to make hearing officers New Haven residents, then that would possibly cause an issue with those who are not. Well, I guess we could ward it in the sense to let them finish their term. But that may anger some people. We want to try to keep a little bit of peace in the city. Okay, would you be opposed as assistant corp counsel if we were to make those kind of changes?
I don't think so. I would say, as we kind of expand this process, it's yet to see really how many hearing officers we're really going to need. So for example, we have a new process for, as you all know, the bus camera violations. We've got red light camera violations coming online. We're expecting hundreds of people to be getting these violations, possibly requesting hearings. And so, we're going to need more hearing officers. The hearing officers are volunteers. They have to be volunteers. They're required to not be paid by the city. And so we don't want to put too many restrictions on how we get hearing officers. But we haven't gotten to the point yet where we are overwhelmed, but I could see that coming. I will say that the dream that a former corporation counsel, Pat King, had, because this was kind of her brainchild that she was working on and kind of handed off to me before she left, was to have law students be hearing officers, which could have some issues in terms of turnover. They might not be hearing officers for that long, but there would be, if we could partner with a law school, whether that be Yale or Quinnipiac, which, that might not be necessarily be New Haven residents, to get a steady stream of law students who might want to be a judge one day or ready to look at the law and be really fair, that can provide us a good possible stream of hearing officers. But, we could cross that bridge when we get to it.
Or we could form something that would say on this study or participating in one of our colleges, universities. Okay, I won't belabor that now. Were there any other questions before the attorney continues?
Mr. Chair,
I
Yes.
have a question.
thank you, sir. You mentioned hearing officers in the hopes that there is no conflict when they're hearing. How can you ensure?
You can circle that mic, Brad. I'm trying to.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, sir. You mentioned hearing officers and hopefully no possible conflict. How can we ensure that the hearing officer that would be hearing any case not have a conflict?
That's a great question. So far, when it's come up, hearing officers have volunteered. If the hearing officer sees a case coming up and they see the name on the case, and they say, "Oh, I know this person. I can't take this case." That throws us off sometimes because we want to bring the case, but we're like, "Oh, okay, we've got to push this off for a few weeks and find a different hearing officer to take the case." We could all, so the hearing officers are volunteering it from their end. If we needed to, we could also survey the person who is cited, the people who are cited coming in, and have them affirm in some way that they do or do not have any relationship with the hearing officer.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You will continue? Sure, of course, Alderman Shan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple more questions just came into my mind. I'll be brief. I don't see anything about a term of office. So these folks are appointed until they step down or they're removed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they're sworn in, I presume, by the mayor.
They are.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, it would be useful to see what the wording of the swearing in is. And is it also going to be uniform, or that's more of an administrative matter? But it would just be useful to understand what they're promising to do or not do when they sign up for this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Alderman Theodore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this presentation. I see in 32.3 about the hearing officers, A2, it mentions training. Is there a training process for hearing officers beyond the swearing in, or is that training referring to past experience that the mayor deems valuable?
I just want to make sure I'm tracking of what you were describing.
Or more broadly, is there a uniform training process for these people?
So there's a training process for the hearing officers. The one we have done has been pretty specific to LCI, and so we'll go over the ordinances, the housing code ordinance in detail. We'll go over the residential licensing ordinance in detail and the anti-blight ordinance in detail, and then the hearing process in general. If this is to expand to other enforcement of other ordinances, then it would be helpful, I think. We could easily do the same, like training the hearing officers on the general process, we will certainly be doing. I think there is some question, and we've even, discussed this in terms of like how much of a role we even should have as the city in training the hearing officers on the interpretation of the ordinances, because we have an interest in them interpreting it our way.
Yeah.
So as far as the process in general, we provide some training on that. But I think, we're trying not to give too much direction on how they should interpret the ordinance.
Got it. Thank you for that. You know this better than me, but might it be worth outlining some process of training or acknowledging training in the ordinance, or is that not necessary?
don't think it's necessary to outline what that would be in the ordinance. I think that, again, it depends on how far this goes. I think the requirement is that they have to be someone who can read the ordinances, understand them, and apply them to the situation. I think that doesn't require too much, at least from what we've experienced so far.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. Any other questions from committee? Okay, do you have anything else, Counselor?
I don't necessarily want to go line by line through that, so,
We don't want that.
yeah, focused on chapter 32. The other ordinance is, much longer, but it's each different part of the code. I mean, there's so many ordinances. Generally speaking, pretty much all of them, they're either, if there was a different type of hearing officer, like maybe a special police hearing officer or a special fire alarm hearing officer or airport hearing officer, we've gotten rid of those and said all of them are just going to be a hearing officer who's appointed by the mayor pursuant to chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances. There's a lot of ordinances that kind of get confusing between, is it a process for citations and fines, or is it a process for licensing and permits? So we've made that really clear, a distinction that if you're getting a license or a permit, there's a process for that. But that is separate from if you have violated the ordinances and we're issuing a fine against you. Other things that come across a lot of these are just that, again, if there was some appeal process or a length of time that someone had to appeal that was longer or shorter, that, in this case, we're giving you this many days to appeal. In this case, we're giving you 60 days, 5 days. Make them all uniform, it's all the same. It's 10 days, which is what the state statute says. 10 days to ask for a hearing, 30 days to appeal. Just made them all uniform across the board. If there's specific questions about any of them, I can have any answer those.
This doesn't include the health department because their process goes to the state.
That's correct. So there's a few processes that kind of survive or that will remain distinct. There's health department and building department. Those are different state statutes for the health code, building code, and the fire code as well. And so those can actually work at the same time. So if someone violates the fire code, we now, under this, would have the option to bring our own city enforcement against them, while at the same time referring it to the state for prosecution of the state code. So actually, for some of them, it allows us to now do both, which we couldn't do before. Fairgrant will keep its own process because they have their own separate process. The airport board will still keep their process for ordering people to ground planes, things like that. That'll be separate. It won't be through the hearing officers. A few things like that will remain.
Great. Any further questions? Alder Marks?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, just quickly,
Could you pull that mic over to you?
thank you, Mr. Chair. This committee has been reviewing some very interesting proposed legislation regarding the vape shops and the new civil citations. Is that following this process?
So that will be under this process. Yes, I can't recall exactly where that ordinance is, if that ordinance is already passed or being passed, but that will need to conform with this, actually. So I think there's a few things that are kind of in process already that I think the zoning one as well that are going to need to conform with this process.
And you stated it can be up to state law, because I think we heard regarding the vape shops, there's going to be new state and even legislation with higher fines and new things such as boarding the businesses. So this allows growth with the state law enhancements.
Exactly. This is written generally. So as long as that new ordinance, instead of writing its own procedure, will just say it'll be enforced under chapter 32 of the ordinances, and it'll be whatever maximum is.
Looking forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alder Marks. Alder Marchand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will a hearing officer be responsible for just one ordinance topic? Like housing code versus anti-blight ordinance versus some other area of city law?
They could potentially be responsible for multiple topics or areas. So far it's dependent on their schedules, right? Again, they're volunteers. The ones we have right now are coming in 2 hours a month. So in 2 hours, they can get through only a certain number of cases. And so, for certain things, right, like the bus cameras, I expect we'll have a lot of people violating those. So there probably would be one hearing officer who that's all they do. Whereas for vape shops, there probably wouldn't be that many. So someone might do vape shops and the noise ordinance at the same time, for example.
So then the question of the mayor's judgment about the person's competence is really crucial, because it might be general competence about ordinances and enforcement types of things, but it might also be subject matter competence that might span more than one area of city enforcement. Okay. Thank you for that answer. I guess one of the things that I would like, and would like to request to you, Mr. Chair, is a sheet of paper that lists all of the enforcement actions that the city would undertake that would be covered by hearing officers named through this proposed new section of our ordinance. It would also be helpful to have a list of areas of city law where the enforcement actions are not subject to this language because they are subject to some other authority, state law, or whatever it might be. I think it's just helpful for us to be able to visualize what we're talking about here and how many potential hearing officers we might be looking at. The city has a roster of hearing officers now. I hope it's centrally kept, possibly in the chief administrator's office, but maybe in the mayor's office. So that would also be useful, I think, if I may ask, Mr. Chair, for us to have, just to understand the scope and scale of work that these folks will have, because that has some impact on my thinking about things like competence and training and other things as well. I think this body would be well served to understand that better. So I would make that request to Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
So if I may, just to make sure I understand, it's all the ordinances that are going to be covered by this procedure, all the ordinances that are not, or that would be covered, are not going to be covered by this because they'd be covered by something else, and then approximately how many hearing officers we would need in total, or for each area, or
I would say how many hearing officers the administration thinks we'll need, and then what's the current roster of hearing officers, right? I mean, we have a roster of them. That's public information, I'm sure. Who are they, and what types of ordinance violations are they hearing appeals of? This is a snapshot in time. I'm sure it'll change as enforcement gets ramped up in certain areas. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have one question, if there's no other questions from the committee, and this will be the final one, so we need to move. Currently, the hearing officers are appointed by the mayor, but they are not affirmed by the Board of Alders. I'm wondering, since this is all coming under one, and there's going to be probably quite a few, I'm wondering if it should follow that process now of the hearing officers being appointed by the mayor and affirmed by the Board of Alders, as are almost all appointments.
I have no reason why that should or should not happen.
I can see the mayor waving his hand no.
I think I will probably defer to Corporation Counsel, if I may. I might, seek an opinion from her on that question, but I don't see any reason why that should or shouldn't be.
It might be wise, seeing the broadness of what they're going to be covering now and the competence level of them handling so much more now that it might be good to have that extra layer. But that's for us to debate. You can talk to Corp Counsel, but we'll still make our own decisions.
Yes, we will.
Any other questions from committee? Great. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on these two items? Anyone from the public wishing to testify on these two items? I suspect people are here for other things this evening, but I'll ask for a third time. Anyone from the public wishing to testify on these two items? Seeing none, we will go to our next item, which is the moratorium. If city staff would come.
Item 6.
Item number 6, thank you, Alderman Shane.
So before we just
Yep. So this would be item number 6, and I believe it's going to be presented by City Plan and our
Switch 47.
Mr. Piscatelli perhaps, or, yeah. We're going to do the waiver at the end.
Okay.
Good evening, Alders, Laura Brown, Director of the City Plan Department, 262 West Rock Ave.
Welcome,
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
And I believe my colleague Dean Mack will be joining us as well. He stepped out for a moment.
Good evening, Alders. My name is Michael Piscatelli, Economic Development Administrator, and I reside at 353 7th Street in New Haven. Thank you for the time today.
Is that it?
Mr. Mack.
Mr. Mack,
Mr. Mack.
welcome back.
You have the floor.
I think I can begin, yeah. So the City Plan Department staff had the opportunity to review this proposal for a data center moratorium. And we prepared a staff report that provides a little bit of additional background on what we believe may be some of the potential impacts of data center proliferation that's happening around the country. We are very much in support of the moratorium because we're not able to fully vet all of the potential adverse impacts of data centers, and I think we do need to learn more. I think it's a prudent approach to think about putting a moratorium on these. For a little background for those who might not, excuse me, I didn't allow my colleague to, did you introduce yourself to me?
I didn't, sorry.
Okay, maybe you.
So, hi. My name is Dean Mack. I'm Deputy Director of Economic Development, and I live at 492 Whitney Avenue in New Haven.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I am still skilling up myself to understand what these facilities are and how they operate and what the impacts might be. I understand that some of their proliferation is the result of the increased use of AI and the data processing needed to fulfill all of our various AI needs. But they are heavy users of electricity and water, and they produce heat emissions that may be of concern. They're also large consumers of land, typically. So these are all things that I think we need to investigate further to really understand what the potential impacts would be. I will note, and I don't know if you've been provided with the City Planning Commission staff report, but the zoning ordinance does actually already consider data centers. There's a definition for data centers in the zoning ordinance. And that was added by you all when you adopted the Long Wharf mixed use district. We added some more modern definitions to the zoning ordinance. So they are already prohibited in residential and commercial zones, but they are allowed as of right in industrial zones. So again, I think it is prudent to consider the moratorium. I will note just procedurally, this has been heard by the City Plan Commission as a deliberation or a discussion item for referral, as a referral. And in the past, when we've considered moratoria, for instance, on Long Wharf, you all adopted a moratorium on development, and that was provided with a public hearing. We did not notice this as a public hearing because it's not an amendment to the zoning ordinance, although it has implications for zoning. So I would advise that we bring it back to the City Planning Commission and let them hold a public hearing on it. That's just a procedural item. Again, you have a staff report that is guidance, and I would follow your guidance if you think you'd like it not to be heard as a public hearing, but that would be my advice. So I think that is what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Anything else before we ask questions?
Just express gratitude. This is led by the alders who identified a potential gap in our regulatory approach here, and we appreciate the fact that you would flag this with us. We had offered through staff and the team here a friendly amendment to the text in the original communication. Generally, just to keep our eyeballs on the larger concern here, which are these large data centers, which are a tremendous amount of investment in this around the country, which may or may not find its way to Connecticut, and best to be prudent with our thoughtful in our regulations should it come more aggressively to Connecticut. But you know, uses that are say customary and incidental to a regular run business here in the city, like Asa Abloy, in creating new door enclosures. That's mainly a digital company anymore. It's amazing how they turn that company into creating door enclosures that are digital, print or something, or the new quantum computer that's part of the Innovation Cluster Grant are things that I don't think the board was looking to put a moratorium on, and we just wanted to have language that was a little bit more clear in that regard. And then to Laura's point about just the process on who hears it and when, should we bring it back to the City Planning Commission for the hearing? I think we still stay on the schedule that the Board of Alders has set forth on this, because those don't need to be sequential. The Legislation Committee could hear it first, Commission could hear it first. Doesn't really matter in terms of the order when we're doing a land use related zoning amendment type of thing. So with that, just express our gratitude for the partnership.
Great. Any questions from committee? Alder Theodore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all. How many data centers are there in the city right now? And do you sense that, I think you referenced this, Director Piscatelli, that this isn't a booming thing in Connecticut yet, but do you sense, like, are there some that are trying to come to the city? Is that an idea that businesses, corporations are approaching you all with?
I don't think we're aware of any specific or proposal necessarily for a data center. They're mainly customary and incidental to many of our land uses here in the city, manufacturers, businesses, commercial businesses. But what we see in the news is a lot related to, as Laura said, investment in artificial intelligence, new data technologies, and these are, you read about this town in rural Georgia where a lot of the groundwater is being drawn up, or a lot of draw on the power. And you kind of look at all the different attributes in New Haven. Well, we have 40 million gallons of excess water in our region, and that's preserved as stewardship, right? So, but someone somewhere that site selects these things might look at New Haven and say, oh, well, there's all that water there. So, I wouldn't say that just because no one's knocking on our door now doesn't mean down the road.
That just add to that quickly some context. So the reason that we also added the quantum computing amendment, we do have a couple of quantum computing facilities in New Haven already. There's one at Science Park that hosts quantum computing and some manufacturing around quantum computing as well. That's at 25 Science Park and opened in 2019. There's also a facility that's part of Yale that's has a number of quantum computers over on Hill House Avenue, 17 Hill House Avenue. And just to contrast that with the data center, those exist, in office parks. They're not a burden to the same degree on power or water that these large scale data centers are, but just want to illustrate that point that we do have those businesses.
That's very helpful. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee members? Alderman Marks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
think
I'm
I'll-
sorry.
Alderman
I had
Marshall.
Alderman Marchand, and then I'll go
Thank
to
you.
Alderman Marks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just looking at the calendar because our first reading of this, if we voted favorably out of the committee, first meeting would be the first meeting of September. Second meeting would be the second meeting of September. And the way the calendar works in September is that the City Planning Commission meeting, which is the third Wednesday of every, sometimes the City Planning Committee meeting would be after the second meeting of the month. But this, in September, it's not. It's between the first and the second meetings. So from a procedure, because the City Planning Commission doesn't meet in August. We get a break. We get a well-deserved break.
Yep.
It's a hard-working commission. So if we agree with City Plan Director's recommendation that is a public hearing be held at the commission, it could be done in September, the third Wednesday of September, and that would be before this would be scheduled for second meeting anyway. So that's correct. In a different month, that might not be the case, but in this case it would. So that wouldn't delay us in terms of doing it. So that's just a quick thing. But one of our experiences in recent years is that things change and new uses emerge that our zoning code doesn't properly describe, and things fall in the cracks. The vape shops are an example of that has been onerous to us. And so one thing I was looking at very carefully was the definition of what we're talking about here. It seemed to be pretty thorough and comprehensive, but I wanted to know your opinion, Director Brown, about is it inclusive enough? And we don't want to let anything sneak past, if you know what I mean. And perhaps the maker would have something to say about where we want to find the definition, because I couldn't come up with that myself for sure. But I just want to make sure we're not letting anything sneak through.
I don't think I can really comment on whether there might be something that we don't anticipate. But if Alder Furlow, if you are aware of where the definition came from, to look into that further.
You still have the floor, but I'll just jump in. So I got a definition from the other cities in Connecticut who have them, which is Groton, Morris, West Haven.
Yep.
And so I looked at all three of those and said, yeah, this looks like it will work.
Yep. I will say that,
Thank you, sir.
excuse me, very often when there are things that don't fit squarely into, a definition, we look at the intent of the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's pretty clear that the intent of the ordinance was to cover everything that could potentially fall into this bucket, with the exception of those that are being supported through our efforts related to quantum and innovation clusters, I think it could be, maybe there would be some leeway.
Thank you for that. Related to this is what the proposed language excludes, and it says server rooms. So I think I know what that is. Like you have a big building with lots of lab space in it, for example. There's often like a room where there's a bunch of servers. So this specifically excludes that. But that's like a room in a building. It's not like an Amazon warehouse sized facility, for example. Telecommunications closets, I think I know what that is. Information technology equipment, that's a little bit broader. So I'm not sure exactly what that means. But then the amendment that the staff is proposing is the quantum computing or life sciences research facilities associated with the New Haven Quantum and Life Sciences Innovation Cluster. And I can understand why the city doesn't want to have any ambiguity about that, right? Could you just remind us what facilities that includes? More than one location.
One charge. Sure, yeah. So we've identified the innovation cluster as the area that's in the former Route 34 corridor between the medical campus of Yale University and Union Station. So it's not really specifically talking about Science Park or other areas that are associated with innovation in the city. That there is a spatial definition that is that area in downtown.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to be sure. So, do you want to specifically hold that area aside and say this moratorium wouldn't apply to that area?
Yeah, so we have grant commitments in those lines. I think when we first read the definition, it's, it's a gray area. I think arguably the intent and the letter of the original communication would not necessarily trip up a quantum computer initiative, if you will, but just a matter of, just some due diligence along those lines.
Because there is no plan that I've heard spoken of about a big warehouse between the two highways that would house a facility like what we've been reading about. But you're just being
Or
extra
anywhere
cautious.
citywide, right? But, as to the points made and why the concerns are being raised, like they are really, significant facilities that are being built around the country and really creating lots of challenges for some of the smaller towns. And, that sort of gets sorted out over time, and this will give us that time to get our regulations in order.
I looked at the the New York State moratorium that came out a couple of weeks ago, and they have a 50 megawatt, I think, scale qualifier, or anything below that's not counted. So our ordinance doesn't have the size qualifier, so that's, I think, why we were just thinking that there's a possibility that there'd be a principal use quantum computing structure, like the QCI or the quantum circuits one in Science Park. That's only 6,000 square feet. But it is primarily for data processing. So there's a theoretical concept, or maybe that quantum facility, even if it's small, could, by the letter of the moratorium, be confused as falling under it. So.
Understood, thank you. My last question, Mr. Chair, is really around the time frame. The ordinance says that it will last for 12 months from the implementation date, the effective date of the moratorium, and then recommendations are due in 6 months from that effective date, if I remember correctly. So my question to our staff is that enough time? Do you think we can get a good grip on this and have some proposals by 6 months from that? Or from
I think that's sufficient time, to address this issue. I do recall when we passed the moratorium on Long Wharf, that we were advised by Corporation Counsel that a 1-year moratorium is kind of what the law supports. And so I think we'd want to ensure that we have something to adopt by the 1-year mark. And I think 6 months seems reasonable to have an amendment to the zoning ordinance prepared.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 questions. One does go to this issue of definition. I have trouble dealing with the definition of data center. Appreciate it for Chair took it from other towns and hope they did their work to come up with it, but I don't have the technical expertise to understand sort of what these various terms mean, and wonder if it's possible, instead of these technical terms, to get at what we're really concerned about, which is scalar size. What we're concerned about is heavy usage of, I think, essentially electricity and water, heavy output of heat, size. Is there a way to get at that so that's very clear what we're dealing with, rather than, I just don't know if we're prohibiting some use in this definition. I can't make enough sense of the various terms.
I think I might offer, that's typical when we get right out the gate, right? The moratorium is just a pause, if you will. And we actually we thought about as well, like the whole zoning ordinance conversation, because the city planning department will be working on new zoning for the city, should it be more related to the impact and the performance and less on the type of use in particular, because it's, the impact is what we hear about most. So it's conceivable, we may not even need the full year. It's conceivable as we work together on the new code that it's performance-based. But I wouldn't necessarily say we would need to have to, reverse course now. Because if we were to reverse course and do it as performance-based, we may trip up and find the same problem. So, but we're thinking along the lines that I think the board is, you hear about impact as much as land use and stuff. I'll take that into consideration.
And then that becomes adaptable as a use. My second question just is about, appreciate the need for this, but sort of the necessity. Wondering, just given current land use and how it works and site plans and things, I mean, anybody who's gonna come build a warehouse like the ones we're reading about, in the National News in Georgia, would need a lot of site plan and a lot of permission, and we could stop it there. Is there a reason? Can I have somebody speak to sort of the need for the ordinance versus a single land use, and then we could address it as it comes up.
As I noted in the zoning ordinance as it's written, a data center would be as of right in an industrial zone. So that doesn't mean there wouldn't be other triggers necessarily that we would need to review, as in like it would pretty likely be in a coastal area where we have a lot of industrial space, or in a special flood hazard area, or might be big enough to trigger site plan review otherwise. So it's possible we'd be able to review, but we could only review for the criteria in the zoning ordinance. We wouldn't be able to say, well, this is a use that we just don't like, so we're going to stop this from moving forward. The City Plan Commission, if it is zoning compliant, would approve it. So this allows us to say, no, you can't even submit a permit or a development permit for these types of projects for this 12-month period.
Thank you for reminding me about the process.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation and for your help. I should add that I did have an intern also help with the definition.
Yes, very helpful.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I just ask Misty if anyone from the public wishes to testify? Has anyone signed up for this? Okay. Well, we'll call for Laura Collins to come, and then I'll ask if anyone else would like to testify. Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you give us your name and address for the record, and you have the floor?
Yes, thank you. Laura Kahn, 54 Cleveland Road. Westville's in the house. Thank you, Alders. And thank you, Alder Furlow, for this very important ordinance proposal. I completely agree with this. As former chairwoman of the Environmental Advisory Council, the New Haven City Board that deals with environmental issues, I've been aware of things like this for a long time, and I really appreciate that you're taking it on and taking it seriously. And as all the other environmental issues you take on Alder Furlow, this one is a weighty issue. So I won't keep you long, but I will tell you that I agree that they use a lot of electricity and water and emit a lot of heat. And they also make noise. And noise has big health impacts. The Environmental Advisory Council heard about adverse health impacts from loud noises from quiet communities. And you can now go online and look at a webinar they recently held about data center noise. And noise causes stress that can harm hearts and brains, and it interferes with learning and all kinds of other things. So we have to consider noise as well. Noise pollution is a big factor that many people don't realize is harmful. And yeah, so I'm glad you're all nodding. I'm glad you all care. And there was recently some factory, I think in West Haven, that was making a noise, and I could hear it from my house in Westville, and I didn't know what it was. And for months, I heard this annoying noise, and it was really annoying, even as far away as my house. And I hear planes at 6 in the morning and 11:30 at night, and later at my house, and at 2 in the morning. And noise is disruptive, and we need to do everything we can to make sure we don't let anyone in here who's making any more noise, because it's harmful to us, it's harmful to wildlife, it's especially harmful to children, it stops them from learning. Anyway, you get it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I see someone else rising. Yeah, come on down, you're the next contestant. you give us your name and address for the
My name
record?
is Mary Woolsey, and I'm at 4 St. Roman Terrace in New Haven. I am here in my personal capacity, although I'm also chair of the Environmental Advisory Council. I have prepared remarks, but I could also just say that as I was preparing my remarks, I was puzzling over the question of definition, and so I would appreciate that that be clarified. Are we talking about new, or are we talking about large scale, or where does this moratorium exactly, where does it hit? But given the explosive growth in this industry, I think the city needs time to develop zoning standards for new data centers to protect the interests of city residents. They obviously place unique and high demands on the electric grid, transmission lines, and water resources. And this moratorium would allow the city to determine whether any additional data centers are appropriate for New Haven, and if so, what restrictions are needed to minimize their climate and their air pollution impact, their contribution to noise pollution, as Laura Kahn mentioned, and other negative health and environmental consequences. It should be noted that data centers often have generators that are powered by diesel, which is highly polluting, and that would be something to take into account in considering what restrictions may be placed. And to note that this city already bears a very heavy health and environmental burden, and to consider that in developing new guidelines. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify on this item? Anyone else? You look vaguely familiar. Good evening. Give us your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Good evening, Alders. My name is Manuel Camacho, 24 Willis Street. So, I am the chairman of the City of New Haven Peace Commission, and on this item, I'd like to bring in a different perspective, connecting the international level with the City of New Haven. Internationally, the United Nations is holding quite a stance on AI development, data center development, as we see the burden of its impact on developing countries and communities around the world. So this is a very important topic, not just for New Haven, but for countries all over the globe. On August 12th, actually, I'll be heading up to the United Nations for the Youth Summit on AI. And so this is quite fitting that we are addressing this here in our city. And as you've heard already, the economic, environmental, and really housing affordability as well, right? I mean, when you have data centers in these cities like ours, which is considered a very urban city, it drives up a lot of the prices for everyone else, because there's developers and companies who are invested in this rapidly expanding AI development integration of our society, who want to come in and do more business and do things with our city. So it's certainly an important topic here for the city of New Haven, as well as countries around the world. So thank you for considering this, taking the time to really talk about this issue and the impact that it can have on a city like ours. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify on this item? Another one who looks vaguely familiar. Welcome, sir. If you give us your name and address for the record.
Aaron Good, 702 Quinnipiac Avenue. Yeah, I think as you heard, we don't know of any data center proposals for New Haven, and I think there are lots of reasons to think that we're not going to be on the front lines of the data center construction surge, but obviously it's always better to be prepared and proactive rather than reactive to these kinds of threats. And we certainly know that low-income areas with lots of Black and brown residents are always going to face a disproportionate burden of any kind of environmental hazard or pollution threat, whether that's a power plant or a sludge incinerator or an oil tank farm or giant piles of road salt, all of which we have in New Haven, or it's a data center. So That disproportionality is obviously why we have terms like environmental justice and environmental racism, and that's why we have 2 or 3 of the most polluted census tracts in the entire state of Connecticut, and those census tracts are clustered in low-income areas of New Haven, Fairhaven, and the Annex in particular. I think we're already kind of moving past the moratorium proposal. I think there's already kind of consensus about that. We've had some discussion about what we actually want the final kind of regulatory framework to look like. So just a few thoughts about that. And I think the criteria that trigger greater scrutiny in our regulatory framework, our regulations, our zoning ordinance should be performance-based, right? I think they should be specifically about water and electricity consumption, not about the number of circuits or the size of the building or that kind of thing. They should be performance-based, and also if possible address some of the specific noise pollution issues, the decibel level, that kind of thing that Laura Kahn raised. I think I want to say too that, in terms of what the final regulation looks like here, I mean, we may want to have, a new special permit in our ordinance, something like that. But I guess I would suggest thinking a little bit a bigger, a more kind of expansive framework. And I think we actually have a lot to learn from what the state has done, providing us a good model in its environmental justice law. Connecticut General Statutes 22A-20A. Environmental justice law passed back in 2008 with support from a lot of environmental justice activists in New Haven. And what that does is it enhances community notification and public participation protocols for certain types of polluting facilities. And it enhances the scrutiny of those facilities, requires more community meetings. Notices have to go out in English and Spanish. And in some cases, there is a specific requirement for community environmental benefits agreements. And it provides some structure for what those environmental benefit agreement negotiations might look like. So I just think that is a good framework adopted 18 years ago that we've engaged in New Haven, including very recently with one of the oil tank farm operators in the port area. I think it's worth looking at that in terms of what we want this post-moratorium regulatory framework to look like. I would just say finally, as bad as the potential impacts of data centers are, I think it is possible in some cases that the community benefits are so great that they could outweigh the negative impacts. And I'm thinking in particular some of the projects that the company Meta has been building recently, where they're supplying all of their own power with renewables. They're paying for electric buses and electric garbage trucks in their host communities, as well as doing STEM education programs and providing grants to community organizations. And so I think it is possible on a limited case-by-case basis that there is a place for data centers in New Haven to support our computing research or AI research in our universities, our startup economy, quantum research. I think if a company came and said we're willing to buy English Station and spend $250 million cleaning that up to 1 part per trillion PCBs, and we'll also put in a kayak launch, I think that's something that we should be open to. So I think, if there are some really contaminated sites in New Haven, industrial sites, brownfield sites, and a data center is willing to come and clean those up and turn it into a research a facility that supports research at our universities, I think we always want to be skeptical, but that's something that we should be open to. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Could you tell me that state statute again for environmental justice? Do you have that?
Yeah, it's we kind of refer to it as the environmental justice law, but it's 22 Connecticut General Statutes, section 22-20A. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Anyone else from the public wishing to testify on this item? Anyone else from the public wishing to testify on this item? Third time, anyone else wishing to testify on this item? Okay, before we move on, are we good to go? Are we good to keep going, or do we need to take a break. We're good? Okay, let's keep rocking and rolling. We will now go to item number one. And this would be for Mr. Pullen. If you would come forward. Is there anyone from city staff that is going to sit with the applicants, or are they all gonna just come? And I would like to have someone come sit if that's possible. These applications, they go through the personnel department and then the mayor's office, and so it'd be good to have a little bit of company for our applicants. And then I'll just remind the committee once again that we're going to stick to the criteria that is listed in the ordinance. And if there are any questions that are personal, or that I deem too personal, then I will politely interrupt, and then we will, if you need to ask those questions, then we will have to go into executive session. Okay, I'll give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening to the committee. My name is Alexander Pullen, residence address 6 Pequot Avenue, North Haven, Connecticut. And I'm here seeking exemption to the city's elector residency requirement for the position of city assessor. I was born and raised here in the city of New Haven and lived here until I purchased my home at about age 25. I really like my job here. I get to work in the city that I grew up in. I get to ensure that things are fair and equitable and try to make them better than they were before I got here. I've been an employee of the city since 2006, so 20 years, all of which were in the assessor's office. And during that time, I've moved up the ranks and obtained the highest level of assessor certification, the CCMA 2. This is important because an assessor must have a CCMA designation, 1 or 2, in order to sign the grand list. In 2011, upon the assessor vacating the position during the revaluation, I was forced to step up as the acting assessor. The position was marketed but was never filled, partly because our research shows that only one person holding a CCMA certification lives in New Haven, and any other candidate would also be a non-elector. The person from New Haven happens to already work in our office as we speak and is my assistant. I've been in the position with an agreement from the union for the past 15 years, as my original position of deputy assessor would have required me to fill in the absence of the assessor anyway. This aside, I'm seeking the exemption based on the financial hardship which would occur should I choose to take up residence in New Haven while still owning a home in North Haven. I've owned my home in North Haven since 2008, about 18 years, and the property itself has been in my family for 3 generations. I have no desire to sell a house that I grew up visiting and which holds a lot of memories with my deceased grandfather who lived there. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I'll patiently await the results.
Thank you. I should probably have you introduce yourselves, and then we'll ask if there's any questions from the committee.
I'm Susan Baldwin, the Personnel Director for the city, and I'm at 49 Central Avenue.
Joseph McCarthy, Chief Administrative Officer, 569 Orange Street.
Sean Madison, Chief of Staff, 1279 Quinnipiac Avenue.
Thank you. Any questions from committee for Mr. Pullen? Alderman Marche.
Thank you for your testimony this evening. Just a little bit more information about this organization, whose acronym I don't understand. And so what that organization is, and a little bit more information about the qualifications that are at play in the job that you do. Thank you so much.
So one of the qualifications, and this is just based on state statute. The Connecticut state statute says that an assessor must have a CCMA designation in order to sign the grand list. Now, the CCMA designation is the Connecticut Certified Municipal Assessor designation. And there's two levels of that. The way that you obtain it is you have to go to assessor school. And that's where you'll see usually 1 week out of the year. Every week, it's the first week of June. We send staff. Sometimes I go there if the office isn't too busy. But you essentially have to take about 6 years worth of classes and sit for an exam. Then you take some more classes and you sit for the second exam. Now that I have that designation, every 5 years I have to recertify it. And during all that time in between, I have to do continuing education, some of which is at UConn Assessor School, and some of which is obtained doing various seminars and symposiums.
Thank you for that additional information. This might be for the personnel director, which is when's the last time we actually looked for an assessor and we were able to determine whether or not anybody in New Haven had that? Or is it public information? There's a directory of these people and yet we know where they live. I mean, how do we know that?
There is a directory, correct?
There is a directory, and I checked myself and even did some cross-referencing with the directory. And that's how we were able to determine that there's only one person who has that designation that lives in the city of New Haven.
I believe the last time we actively were recruiting for this was in 2012.
Correct.
Something about that?
Thank you. And there's nothing that would allow the municipality to hire someone into the assessor's role who didn't already have those credentials. Like maybe they were halfway through, would it be a provisional hire, or must they have the credential?
It's been done before, but depending on the timing, you would then have to go to another municipality and get that assessor, if they were willing to do it, to sign your grand list. Because while someone is in the process of gaining their CCMA, that's great. You know, you're taking the classes, but you don't have the degree.
It's worth noting that the state of Connecticut right now seems to have a shortage of actual municipal assessors. There's a good number of communities across the state that actually share assessors. They're part-time, and they work part-time in one community and part-time in another, and they may even work part-time in yet another. So, and in a city the size of New Haven and the volume of work, it would be difficult sharing an assessor with some other community.
Yeah, it's a full-time position here. It's not 19 hours a week for sure.
Very much full-time.
Thank you for that additional information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Marchand. I'd like to call also to the alder's attention, there was given to us a packet from the mayor's office, and it has there's a letter for each applicant. And in this letter, it details their reason for requesting the waiver, the residency waiver. So just for your information. Any other questions from committee? Alder Marks, and then we'll go to Alder Theodore.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to the city. Appreciate it. And the qualifications are obviously outstanding. I do want to make sure we're following the process as was laid forth in the ordinance. We've heard from Mr. Poulin regarding his hardship and his qualifications. Would like to hear from the city regarding the recruitment process, because it does seem like the ordinance requires a recruitment process. If I'm reading it correctly, can we ask about the recruitment process?
I'll let.
Or what is your reading?
Yeah.
The requirement, please. I just want to.
I'll let Mr. Madison, but yeah, that's it.
It's been a number of years. I mean, and again, it's largely because recruitment comes at a cost and an expense. And, you know, you do it, you continually search and you look, and eventually, you know, it doesn't yield any results. You know, in the acting role, Mr. Pullen has done an amazing job. We couldn't have asked for anything better. You know, and serves both the city and the residents well, in his capacity. But honestly, it is a very difficult position to try to fill, and it's been a period of time. I believe the ordinance speaks to, you know, recruitment and is one of the but you know, it's been a position that's been very hard to pass.
What the ordinance states specifically is whether the personnel director will determine whether recruitment is necessary, especially if it's a promotion. And so that's the criteria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes, Alder Theodore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I should probably keep a list like Alderman Trump does in finance.
Thank you for the presentation and for your long service to the city. Yeah, I guess I think I appreciate you all laying it out very clearly and hitting a lot of the points. I guess my question is, do you ever feel that living not in New Haven affects your ability to perform your job and to understand the needs of the community, the state of the community?
To answer your question, no. I'm born and raised here. I lived my whole life here. My parents still live here. My grandmother still lives here. In addition to that, I live right at exit 9. It takes me 7 minutes to get to work every day. My second job is also in New Haven. I actually spend more time in New Haven than I actually do at home. I definitely spend more money in New Haven than I do. So I know these streets. I know the nuances of these streets. I know where Chapel West turns into not Chapel West. And those are things that even if someone were to be hired today and rent an apartment in New Haven, they wouldn't know these things because they didn't grow up on these same streets. So I don't feel it hinders my ability to do my job. Sometimes I run into a lot of people that I know in the office and I try to hide so that way I don't have to tell them, sorry that your car got towed, I can't help you, the law is the law. But other than that, I think that I'm an asset to the city rather than a liability.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
We'll go to item 3, and we will call the Director of Youth and Recreation, Gwendolyn Williams. Good evening.
Good evening.
You would give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you, sir. Announce name. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I thought I was solo. Not a problem. Good evening, everyone. Gwendolyn Williams. Gwendolyn B. Williams, 19 Artisan Street, New Haven, Connecticut. You are absolutely right. I did. I'm still paying the student loan right now. Dr. Gwendolyn B. Williams. So my speech to you is very short and brief. I have been with the city of New Haven since 2007. Prior to my hiring, I did purchase my home. I was living in the city of New Haven, actually in another apartment on Artisan Street, 3 Artisan Street. When I did my home search, unfortunately, I was not able to find one that was in my financial limits. And I was able to find a home, luckily, right next door to my big sister. And so we live right next door to each other. which was beneficial because we were also around the corner from our parents. And at this time, I am caring for my mom. My father has transitioned years ago from Alzheimer's. It was a blessing to have my house at that time. And then as I furthered into my career, I was able to be found by a young gentleman who decided to make me his wife. And we moved. He moved from New York to my home, where we still live. I worked my way up, starting off when the department was just youth at work. It developed into the youth service department. And as you know, we have undergone many formations where we were youth and rec with the parks underneath us, and then parks became standalone. And during this time, I was blessed and I was promoted, and I have worked my way up from when this department was just a vision to come to fruition. I have been there from the beginning. And so this is one of the highlights of my career, to have been asked and offered the opportunity to be director of the Youth and Recreation Department. Let's be transparent. No one in their right mind would have turned down that opportunity. That's something that we all work for someone to see our hard work and efforts and then to come to the pinnacle of your career to be asked to be director. April of this year is 19 years of me having been here with the city. I have been a dedicated employee to these young people. I have worked over weekends when we are facing emergencies 24 hours a day. And I have a passion and love for the kids of this city. But I wish to be transparent and let you know that I also have a passion and love for my family and my marriage. As a matter of fact, today I'm celebrating 14 years, my wedding anniversary, but I'm here with you. I know, right? I told them we'll go out to dinner tomorrow. But this is the commitment, because I understand the importance of the decision and the heavy weight that you are bearing in making this decision. But in making my decision in taking this opportunity, I had to speak and sit down with my husband and my family. And my husband did put his foot down. We are not selling this house. We have worked too hard. And this is not an economy where we are able to sell our house and have the same thing at a mortgage that we can't afford. So what was I to do? Do I choose my husband and my marriage and my children, or do I choose the job? That is a position that is uncomfortable for anyone to have been put in. And I think if you look at yourself internally, you mean like, well, what would I have done? So after much prayer, few little tears, because I was disappointed that I couldn't, convince him to be willing to move, but I understood. I understood where he was coming from. You're talking about since 2004, I have been paying on a mortgage. And now we have a mortgage where I can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel and knowing that in 5 years, the house is going to be paid off. But I am to sell this to go into a mortgage now, $300,000, $400,000. My salary doesn't equate to being able to do that. And he is retired and has no plans of going back to work. Good for him. He retired at 55. And so the choice was to find an apartment to pay, because I understood the requirements that came with saying yes with the job. I wasn't trying to finagle. I wasn't trying to get over. It was openly told, and I understood the requirements. And so I split my time. I split my time being a wife, and I split my time making sure I am meeting all the obligations and the requirements that come upon me as the director of this department. It is a financial burden. Not what it can be. It is a financial burden. I now have a seasoned mother who's at the age of 87, and now I have to take care of her. I help to pay for items in her house. I help to make sure that she has her medication. We help to make sure that she has a full-time caretaker because she is unable to do the things that she has once done. But at her age, we're trying to make sure that we honor our mother and our father, and we're keeping her in her home because that was her request. But there are financial obligations that come with that. It is just my sister and I, so that burden only falls upon 2 people. I have 3 boys, 1 biological and 2 love children. And as much as we like to say our children are grown, they are man children. So that means they still have needs and they still come mom. I know you all have kids, or most of us may have kids or nieces or nephews or godchildren. And it's one of those things, I'm sure I have a text on my phone, Mom, can you give me $40 for gas money? That responsibility will never stop until God calls me home. And I'm actually proud to have that, because there are some who may want to have a child calling on them. So I am still also helping and assisting with my children whenever they are in need. And I have a wonderful grandson, and he's spoiled rotten. And I'm gonna give him everything that he wants, because I don't want him to turn to the streets to find it in another way. And so the financial burden is heavy, but I love my job. I love supporting young people. I love seeing their life change. Sometimes we hit it right. There are other times we're not as successful. But everything I do, I would never change the trajectory of my life right now. I was meant to be here. It was a prayer and a request, and God gave it to me. And so I come to you today and I ask if you would take into consideration my request, my petition. Please know that I would be grateful beyond compare if you say yes. But if the weight of everything on you allows you or forces you to say no, I still will do my job in the excellence that I have been given. And so that is my plea to you. That is my simple story. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. But if you have a question in regards to my finances, I ask that we go into a private meeting. That is not something I choose to discuss with the public.
And we won't do that. Any questions from committee? For our youth director? There was a tie, so I'll go with the person closest to me. Sitting closest, Alder Marchand, then we'll go to Alder Theodore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony and your service to our youth in our city. This is more for the personnel director about the last time there was a search for this position and what information came from that.
I actually don't know the last time we searched for this, but I believe as.
So may I?
Please.
Okay, so to bring back to your memory, at the time when the position became available, that was because the previous administration had been put on leave per investigation. I assumed the role, being the business manager, to take care of everything that was going on in the department, and I did that for over 1.5 years. I'm not sure of the motivation, but I am going to go with the fact that I did such an excellent job. That's why I'm gonna pat myself on the back. That I did such an excellent job that the mayor found it to offer me the position. I do not believe it went to the public. I'm sure the chief of staff will be able to tell me. I do not believe it went to the public because I was already acting informally in the role. So I hope that answers your
I
question.
think it does. It's like things happen through a variety of different circumstances.
Yeah, life was lifing, and that was a very difficult time for the Youth and Recreation Department.
Yes.
And there was only 3 people who were there working, myself, Elderly Services Director Tommy Beal, and Ronald Huggins. And we still continue to execute the programming of that department uninterrupted and flawlessly. No one saw all the internal issues that was going on. And so even though I want to take all of the credit, I cannot, because the 3 of us were working together to make it happen.
So the last time there was like a rigorous search with multiple candidates from different places was probably for your predecessor's position, the position that your predecessor took at that time. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Alder Theodore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation and again, your long service to New Haven. I want to clarify, as you've been director, you have been renting an apartment in the city and splitting time.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it makes sense to me that, when this new path opens up, it makes sense to apply. I think similar to the question I asked the assessor, but with a little nuance because you have had this split residence, did you feel that living in New Haven, even part-time, provided you some value in the workplace where you were more embedded in the city? Do you think it improved your ability to serve?
So the historical information that I did not give you is that I've always been embedded in the city. So this was not anything new for me, from schooling to church to playtime. I've always been embedded in the city. My family, my mom and dad used to have a house on Hallock Street. My aunt and my uncle lived in the hill section. That was my stomping ground, the hill section. Side note, glad that Trowbridge is open again. So it was not anything different for me. It's not a new experience for me. So I'm not a newbie off the block, just coming in, trying to establish relationships. I've had these relationships since I was in my mom's stomach. So New Haven is a second home. There's not too much that I don't touch or know about the pulse of the city.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
You all are wonderful. Am I released? Is it okay if I go home? Okay. I know I got a gift waiting.
Happy anniversary. Thank you so
Happy
much.
anniversary. Thank you.
Next, we will call the city controller, Michael Gormany. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Your name and address for the record?
Michael Gormany, 45 Jefferson Road, Branford, Connecticut. First, I would like to thank the committee for hearing my request on a residency waiver. I will be brief. I started with the city of New Haven when I was an intern in 1999, when I was in high school. And then promoted to full-time in the finance office in 2004. I have worked my way up through the city of New Haven in that time, up until 2024, when I did take a job in the city of West Haven, and then came back a couple of months ago. Happy to be back. But in the time that I spent in New Haven, I certainly garnered a lot of relationships within the New Haven community, developed a lot of programs with the within the New Haven community. One of my great accomplishments in working with Alder Morrison on the Q House when it was being redeveloped years ago. As Ms. Williams touched on, youth services, and one who's worked with me knows I love working with Gwen and developing youth programs within the city. So I have in that time been able to garner a lot of relationships and embed myself within the New Haven community. I have family that lives in New Haven and spend a lot of time in New Haven as well. I currently reside in Branford. Me and my family actually moved to Branford in 2004. Prior, I was in West Haven because we were young, and that's where my family lived at the time. So I've been in Branford for 22 years. Time flies. So right now, we don't really have any plans on selling our place or anything like that. I think having 2 residents and then also having, we have a teenager at home who's going into high school and things like that. There's added household expenses that I have that having a second residence would cause economic hardship within my family. Also, to be honest, I love my job. I love serving the New Haven residents. When I was promoted to budget director in 2017, throughout that period, I always had an open door policy. Also met a lot of New Haven residents just talking about city finances, having a lot of great conversations within that time as well. So, and then in 2020, from 2020 to 2024, I was doing dual roles as budget director, controller, purchasing agent left at the time. Between that time period too as well, we had an acting there. So I think one of the things, and also looking at the residency waiver, is I do have the qualifications as well, for this position. Within the recruitment side as well, between that period of 2020 to 2024, we had 30 applicants, I believe, in that time period. 15 were qualified. Only one of them was a New Haven resident out of the 15.
And we did hire that person.
And we did end up hiring that person, but that was also 4 years. 4 years. So basically from 2020 to beginning of 2024, we didn't have any New Haven residents. So this is a unique position from the recruitment standpoint as well. Again, I love doing my job. I love serving the New Haven residents. Even though I don't live within the community, I also think I can have a positive impact on the community. My zip code doesn't determine the great things I want to see in New Haven and helping the New Haven community. So that is my short pitch for asking this committee to approve my residency waiver, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Alder Theodore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up on what you shared about the recruitment process and make sure I understand. In 2020, there was an opening. There was a 4-year long search, or we hired someone and they only served for 4 years?
It was.
So in 2020, in early 2020, we had a previous controller that was also the transition between mayors, and that controller ended up resigning. So I was actually named acting controller at the time, while also serving as, or doing the duties as budget director as well. We had a continuous ongoing recruitment until we hired someone in January of 2024. I was in interviews and things like that. Unfortunately, we just weren't getting a lot of qualified hits on that actual position. To be quite honest, some of the applicants did say the residency piece was part of it in trying to hire someone. So unfortunately, we didn't really have a lot of movement until we did find that one New Haven resident by chance who was transitioning between their jobs at the time and applied for the position.
Got it. That's helpful. And that person took the job and then left?
Yes.
Okay.
When did they leave? This year, correct? Early this year?
And was there a comprehensive search after that?
No, we didn't do a broad search at that time, right?
No, no, we didn't. I asked, we talked to Michael and asked him to come back.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The Director of Office and Building Inspection and Enforcement, Mr. Robert Dillon. Good evening. Your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name is Robert Dillon, 632 Woodward Avenue, Maine.
You got the floor.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me have a say tonight in this. I appreciate your time. My career in New Haven started decades ago in the professional field of construction, and I was a general superintendent. And I was worked in New Haven for many decades, probably 2 at least. A lot of stuff you've seen up on High Street, on Wall Street. We did Wall Street. We did the law school up there years ago. I've been in Ingalls Rink, Prospect. So I've been around New Haven, Connecticut State Building Code for a long time, and the building department. About 9 years ago, I decided to take a job in the building department as the chief plumbing mechanical inspector for the city. I was appointed by Mayor Hart. When my boss gave notice and retired a couple of years ago, 3.5 years ago, I decided to apply for the job for building official. I'm well read on the requirements that you have to be a city resident, and I still took the job. I own property on Woodward Avenue, so I moved into one of my apartments. At the time, I owned, and I still do, a house in North Haven. My son and daughter both live there in North Haven. About a year ago, my daughter was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, and I don't mind talking about it. And she passed away in November. So my son's home by himself. He's a great kid, but that would be the personal component of this conversation, and obviously the financial. I love serving New Haven. I love being in other communities, and my house is 3.5 miles away out of New Haven. I don't think it'll affect any of my job requirements at all. Again, I'm always out. I work at night with LCI, PD, and FD, and again, I'm in all the communities, and I would just like to have that for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Yes, Olza.
Thank you for service. I'm sorry for you.
Any questions? I will just ask one of our personnel director. You sent a letter and you certify to the mayor that all of the applicants meet the criteria according to the ordinance.
Yes. I don't know if Mr. Dillon mentioned, though, that in addition to what he said, that there are no other individuals with the state certification that is required for this role.
I mean, if that's something we can talk about, I've never obviously done this before. I don't know anybody at all.
We haven't done this before either. It's a brand new ordinance.
It's a long day. I don't know anybody, and if we can speak to that for a minute or two, as you know, Director Baldwin, we have a hard time filling positions in the building department, period. We have 4 open positions, and to get the state certification is difficult. It's a long test. I coach as many people as I can, but it's very difficult to fill that position. So I wouldn't know where to turn, to be honest with you. And I am, and to that point, I'm still doing my old job because we still haven't filled that because it's hard to find somebody. So I still take care of the chief role for the plumbing, mechanical, and sprinkler on a daily basis, and I delegate that as best I can, and I still do the director of the building department. So because we haven't been able to fill that role for 4 years.
Thank you. Any further questions? Alder Theodore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's still an active search going for that?
For my old job, yes.
Yeah. And there's no residency requirement on that, but we still have not been able to fill it.
Yeah, again, just like with the assessor and even the case with a lot of communities and corporation council, communities share them. I mean, there's a lot of part-time building inspectors. They work in one community and they go and work in another. So, yeah.
Got it.
I just want to add, I absolutely love my job. It's a different job every single day. There's no 2 days the same. So this is not a complaint. This is me just informed, nothing else.
No, it's helpful context. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I will ask altogether if there are anyone who wishes to testify on any of the applicants who have come forward this evening. Anyone who wishes to testify on any of the applicants? Three. Good evening, good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
You give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is David Augusta. I live at 431 Orange Street. This will surprise you. I have some cautionary civil rights observations for you. One is a repeat. A personnel decision that grants or restricts a right that is made on a case-by-case basis opens the door to an employment discrimination landmine in the future. It's a very bad practice. We can't control the future. You can do so by not establishing a precedent. So I urge you to make this an all or none decision for that reason. The second thing is, when you restrict someone's rights, you should have a compelling reason to do so. This process is upside down. We're forcing people to tell you why they should not have their rights restricted. If you combine those two, if you, for example, approve the applications of the two white men and then don't have a compelling reason to restrict the rights of everyone else, you're going to lose some lawsuits. The third is, you have the legal right to do this, but do we have a moral and ethical right to force the supporters, the kids, the elderly or disabled family members of our employees to conform their lives to our dictates? Oh, you're going to graduate and you might be valedictorian. You're going to be the starting quarterback in your high school. Sorry, kids. Your father has to move. Your mother has to move. You take care of your elderly resident, an elderly relative in the house they grew up in. Sorry, you have to move. Do we really have a moral and ethical right to do that? I don't think we do. You have a legal right to do that. I don't think we have a moral and ethical right to do that. Your partner has to have a 20-minute longer commute every day because we say so. Should we really be doing that? Is that who we are? I mean, we try harder to ensure that everyone has maximum civil rights. We believe in equality. We believe in civil rights. This is antithetical to what we do, what we believe. And so I urge you to approve all of these. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to testify on these items? Anyone else from the public wishing to testify on these items? And for the third time, anyone else from the public wishing to testify on these items? Seeing none, motion will be appropriate.
Mr. Chair, I move we close the public portion of this meeting.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any discussion on closing the public portion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The public portion is closed. Now, before we move on, because we have quite a bit of business to do, is everyone fine? You want to push through, or do you need a 5-minute recess?
5-minute recess. I would second.
You don't have to second it, okay? So we're gonna take, and there's gonna be a hard 5.
A hard back.
Oh.
Grunting is
Okay. Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yep. Okay.
We will call this meeting back to order. For the portions we closed, we are now in our deliberation. And I will ask if there is a motion.
Oh,
Somebody make a motion.
so, okay. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, that we move item 1.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, discussion on item 1.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Morrison?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Pullen came to the table to talk about the financial burden that would be placed upon him if he had to move to the city of New Haven. He has definitely demonstrated as a person that can do the job. And especially looking at the certification that he talked about, and there only being one other person that holds that certification, we as a city, we need to be able to move forward and not be caught up on just an address. Mr. Pullen has really demonstrated that he is that person, and I think his reasonings for this exception request is valid. And so I agree with this motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Alderman Marchand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm speaking in favor of the motion, and I'm speaking in favor of it for 2 reasons. One, I believe that there's a paucity of qualified people who live in New Haven to fill the role. And I think that's one of the factors that we're allowed to consider. The second is, I agree that it would be a hardship for him to move from his current location, and I think that's at least, the ordinance requires at least one of the factors, so that's 2. Having 2 that are meeting the criteria, I'm in support of the motion. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Theodore?
I'm also in support of the motion. Clearly, Assessor Pullen is such an asset to the city, and I think Mr. Madison described it well, but we do not want this position to be, we want our own city assessor. We don't want to be sharing this throughout the state. It feels like there is a real shortage here, and we are lucky to have someone as great as Assessor Pullen. And so I think we need to keep it on, and it meets, multiple of the requirements of the ordinance. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? It passes with a favorable recommendation to the board. Madam Vice Chair?
Mr. Chair, I move item 2. I'm sorry, not item 2. Do you want to?
Actually, if we could give item 2 move it as a leave to withdraw.
I move item 2 as a leave to withdraw.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? It will be moved or sent to the board as a leave to withdraw. Madam Vice Chair?
Mr. Chair, I move item 3.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Any discussion on item 3?
Mr. Chair.
Madam Vice Chair.
Again, looking at the ordinance and the requirements of needing to have one or more of the needs. So as far as Dr. Williams is concerned, she definitely demonstrated the fact that it would be a financial burden for her to sell her current home and try to move to New Haven, not knowing if she would be able to purchase another home, along with the fact that she's a caretaker to her mother and her family and various things of that sort. So it definitely falls under a financial burden for her. And she has done, excellent work
with the youth department. She, knows our kids by name. She is involved in everything as far as children are concerned for our city. And she is just an asset, a big asset for our city and our youth. And so I am in full support of Dr. Williams and her request under this exception.
Any further discussion? Alderman Marchand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to vote in support of this motion. I urge my colleagues to do the same. I agree with what Alder Morrison just said, so I won't repeat that. But I would also note that I asked the question about the search for the person who ultimately took the position, and it wasn't like the process you might imagine where there was lots of candidates from all over applying and then they chose the most qualified person. This was an instance where they brought in this person was already here. She was filling in an acting capacity and then was made the permanent head of the department. And I think that goes to show that there are some circumstances when someone who has worked in a department for many years becomes the most qualified person. It's not the same circumstance as a job title that requires a particular certification or professional credential. But the credential that she has is all those years serving New Haven youth and New Haven residents. And I think hearing that made me feel that multiple of these factors met. And as such, I am voting in support. I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Marks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make just a specific note regarding Dr. Williams about her humility and dedication to the city. I found it was really just spoke to her character and her service here that she's not in an interim position. She did become the director and was willing to do so at substantial economic hardship. And I just wanted to commend that humility and dedication. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The ayes have it. Will be given a favorable recommendation to the board. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move item 4.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Discussion on item 4. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I am in support of the comptroller, the exception around the comptroller's position with Mr. Gormany. Mr. Gormany has been with the city for 27 years. He was a young person, and then who grew up and took on adult responsibilities, and he did move out of the city. But he has done an excellent job. And it would be a financial hardship on him to not only sell his home, but he has young children who will be impacted by needing to move to another city because of their parents' job. And so in the work that he's done with the city, it shows that you don't have to have the same zip code to have the same love that someone does have the zip code here in New Haven would have in order to do a great job. And so I too am in support of his exception, looking at those criteria and the financial hardship that it will place upon his family. So that's my statement.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too speak in favor of the motion. I won't repeat what my colleague from the 22nd Ward said. Let me just add, however, that of all the city staff that came forward tonight with these exception requests, Mr. Gormany is the one I've worked with most closely. He was manager of budget. He was director of management and budget for many years while I was chair of finance, and I had an occasion to work very closely with him on difficult and complicated matters. And I can attest to his qualification. And it's really great to see someone rise through the ranks and develop deep institutional knowledge, which is actually quite helpful in all sorts of areas of work, including budget. And I recommend Collins vote yes on this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Before I go back to Vice Chair Morrison, any further discussion on this item? Vice Chair?
I just also wanted to point out the fact that the position that Mr. Gormany holds, it took 4 years for the city to find a person that lived in the city of New Haven that was qualified to do the job. And then that person ultimately ended up leaving that position, again, leaving a hole. And there's no way that the city can move forward without its stable leadership. And so, again, looking at the requirements, his school-age children, and at the same time, the fact that they just could not find anyone. They did rigorous recruitment, and that person didn't show up for the city, which Mr. Gormany has shown up for the city for the last 27 years. So I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The ayes have it. Will be given a favorable recommendation to the board. Madam Vice President, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move item 5.
Second. Have been moved and seconded. Discussion. Madam Vice Chair.
I am in support of this exception request. As Mr. Dillon spoke about, as far as his family is concerned, health-related, medical reasons, things of that sort. Although it was not pertaining to him specifically, but due to a loss, he needs to return back to his home. And that is one of the things that is listed here as far as requirements are concerned. He has done an excellent job with the city. As he testified, anytime there was anything happening here in the city, be it day or night, he was right there. And he's only 3 miles away. He would only be 3 miles away from the city of New Haven, where some people that live in the city of New Haven have a much longer distance to travel to different points. And so I am in full support of Mr. Dillon in the exception request.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I also speak in support. I think what Mr. Dillon and the rest of the team described of Mr. Dillon's actually sort of working 2 jobs, the job he rose up the ranks from, the plumbing inspector, and this director job. It speaks to how difficult it is to hire and how specialized these skills are. And we need good people in these jobs, and clearly Director Dillon is that. And it absolutely meets the requirements. And I'm very sorry for his loss. I meant to say that on the floor, but yeah, very sorry for his loss. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am going to speak in favor of the building director, Robert Dillon. He did touch a bit on a personal matter that took place that impacted the size of his family, but he also spoke in regards to the concern he has for his son, who is going to need his help moving forward. And again, he was one of the individuals that mentioned that he is in 2 roles, and it wasn't, to put, to call attention to that, but he is in 2 roles doing it with care of the city. And so I agree with my colleague, Alder Morrison. A zip code at this time shouldn't define any of us where we want to be and how we do our job. So I am in support of his moving forward with his exception. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? This is the last applicant, is it?
Yes, sir.
And so I'll just comment that I am in support of this. The personnel director has certified that Mr. Dillon, along with the others, has met the criteria. And he has come before this committee, along with the others, and has verified that what the personnel director has certified is accurate. And so based on that, having met the criteria of this ordinance, I also will give it a favorable recommendation, or vote yes to give a favorable recommendation to the board. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The ayes have it. It will be given a favorable recommendation to the full board. Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move item 6.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Discussion on item 6. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I am in favor of this moratorium. As life continues to go very fast and things continue to build and there's things that we don't even know that's going to surface. And New Haven being a hot commodity, we have to put a pause and put a moratorium on data centers, because data centers in other places are huge and they can make it huge here in the city of New Haven. But if they're, taking up our environmental elements, our water, our electricity, all those different things, which would put a direct cost on residents in the city of New Haven, I think that we do need to give the city plan department the time necessary to come up with the rules and regulations and laws that will protect residents, because that's why we're here, to make sure that decisions are made that will protect residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman Marchand. I was going to wonder if I should, you're possibly going to make some amendments. So let me go to Alder Theodore first, and then we'll come back to the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also will speak in support of this. I think a moratorium is a great approach and a working group is a great approach. I really appreciated the speakers who touched on impact metrics moving forward, whether that be size or noise or water or electricity use, but I think that is a really good approach. And I really appreciated Mr. Good's perspective at the end of, there might be circumstances in which these could provide value. And I think the amendment the city staff put forward too is also valuable. And so I'm excited to see where the working group goes, but really grateful to you, Majority Leader, for bringing this issue up. And I think to push the city to reflect and be proactive here, because we have no idea, as many people have touched on, what this landscape is going to look like even in 5 years. And so I think we'll be really lucky and glad we did this. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to amend this item.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Discussion. Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me describe the amendment to colleagues, and it's helpful if colleagues look at the 2-page stapled document that was given to us when we began. It includes some red-lined text that was requested by the staff. And so it's that 3rd page to which I will call my colleagues' attention. I'm actually going to amend it slightly differently than the staff recommended. So bear with me. So you'll see that red line text that says quantum computing or life sciences research facilities associated with the New Haven Quantum and Life Sciences Innovation Cluster. Colleagues see that, right?
Yes.
And so the request is to include it in this part so that the moratorium won't apply to those facilities, correct? And that's not really definitional. That's just something to be excluded. So I'm going to include that language in Section 5 exemptions and not in Section 3 definitions, because it's not definitional. So Section 3 exemptions, as I propose this amendment, shall read thus. The provisions of this ordinance shall not apply to facilities excluded from the definition of data center
set forth in section 3. The provisions of this ordinance shall also not apply to the quantum computing or life sciences research facilities associated with the New Haven Quantum and Life Sciences Innovation Cluster, period. That's my amendment. It fulfills the request of the staff that those particular facilities not be mistakenly or erroneously lumped into a moratorium, but it's not definitional, so I just put it into the exemption portion of the. Well, this is not in the item that we have now. This is a document that was not, right? So this is what they're asking for, but it doesn't exist until we speak it into being. So I'm speaking it into being, but I'm moving that red portion into the exemption section as opposed to the definitions. It fulfills their request, but is more appropriate in terms of what these sections are. And I urge colleagues to vote yes on the motion to amend. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On that specifically, Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry?
On that specifically?
She's
What do you mean?
I'm asking, may I speak to that question?
Oh, yes.
Yes, thank you. Looking for your permission, Mr. Chair. And colleague Marchand, I think we're striking the paragraph, the sentence that currently exists in section 5. Is that correct?
No, just to be all very clear. So once again, the staff came up with this as a suggestion. So the ordinance as we have before us doesn't have it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this red sentence and I'm putting it in section 5 to follow the sentence that's there now.
But there's no longer anything excluded from definitions in section.
It is. Server rooms, telecommunications closets, information technology equipment. Those portions of that sentence remain.
I understand now. Thank you for your clarification of your amendment. I can understand. Thank you. He's only moving the red.
Yeah,
not the whole paragraph. I misunderstood. Thank you. Thank you for your clarification.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of this amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The amendment passes. We're back to the item as amended. Alderman Shannon.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend this item.
Second.
Discussion. Alderman Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a very small edit, but it's in the spirit of wanting this definition to be as broad as possible in order to prevent things to sneak through. And also by having language defined broadly, it helps the city staff implement the moratorium to understand our intention. And so it's a very small change. If colleagues look at section 3 definitions, it reads, for the purposes of this ordinance, the following term should have the meaning set forth below. And then there's a paragraph that lays out the definition. It's a very inclusive and broad definition, right? Kind of a catch-all definition, which I think is what we want. In the third line of that paragraph, you'll see the words, and dissemination of electronic data, comma, including cloud-based services, artificial intelligence, etc. Right? I'm going to add the words, but not limited to, after the words including. That happens later in the paragraph, and that's just a small edit.
Thank you.
To make it abundantly clear that those are examples, but they're not exhaustive. So I'm simply adding the word, actually it's comma, but not limited to, comma, after the word including in that third line of that definition. That's it, Mr. Chair, and I encourage colleagues to vote yes on this amendment.
Okay, make sure staff has it. Okay. Any discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, the amendment passes. We're back to the item as amended. Alderman Shannon.
I make no further amendments, Mr. Chair, but I do speak in favor of the item as it has been amended. I think this is a good approach. I commend you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership on this, for doing the work to put together the language. I think the language is really good and really tight. And I think it gives us the time and space we need to make really thoughtful, positive zoning
decisions together with our staff. And I look forward to hearing what those proposals are in about 6 months' time. I encourage colleagues to vote yes on this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? I'll just quickly note, we got burnt with the vape shops because we didn't consider the possibilities of what would happen. And they are able, those that are currently there before we passed ordinances to put some zoning on it, they were able to pop up as of right. I was sent an email, and I'll send it to you all because I don't remember the organization that it was from. But they said that Connecticut is being eyeballed for data centers, and they were going to come testify tonight, but they weren't able, I think, to make it. And so I'll get that to you before our second reading, so you can read the information that they sent. But it's always good to act in caution, and we are the zoning authority of the city, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And as the vice chair said, this is our responsibility. And so I encourage colleagues to vote to give this a favorable recommendation to our full board. Having said that, all in favor, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The ayes have it. It will be given a favorable recommendation. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move item 7.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Discussion on item 7.
Well, I would just say this is when I came in. So I would just say that I do support this this update, I would call it, of the this ordinance. I think that in regards to the various laws that we have, we need to have as many civil, officers as possible. And I think that by updating the ordinance, it puts us in a position to have some uniform process, that people will get used to in the city as we continue to upgrade our city with various things, such as the red light piece and the buses with the cameras and things of that sort as testified tonight. We're gonna have a lot of people coming through the doors asking to be able to be heard. And we need to, once again, as a part of our responsibility, put these people in place, make sure that there's some uniformity in the process. And so people can know that there is somewhere for them to go to speak their truth and get some type of justice. So I do support this ordinance going forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion on item 7?
So I don't know if it needs to be a motion to amend to include some sort of process for review and approval by the Board of Alders.
Talk a little bit more.
That's
certainly my intent.
Fine. I did a motion to amend this.
You'd like to make a motion to amend this item by?
To include in the requirements for the hearing officers that there be a process by which the Board of Alders reviews and approves. Shall I speak to?
No, I think that's good enough. Is it on this one or is it on the second one? It's on the first one. Okay, so I will ask for a second on that motion and then we'll talk about it more.
Second.
Okay. Then moved and seconded. Now it's back to
If I may,
discussion.
I just, I think this is a very thoughtful and, important move. Appreciate Corporation Council doing this. I think it's important that we have a good process. I have watched with great interest LCI's process, and I think they're doing a very good process of review hearings, hearing officers. It's, great to expand this and clarify this. Just the amount of power being vested in this hearing officer is quite substantial. There's going to be obviously substantial disputes and emotions and feelings and rights at the table, given that. I think it's important that there be some vetting by the Board of Alders of those people. I'm interested in a process similar to when people join boards and commissions, where the alder in the ward in which the person lives is notified, so that alder can have shared thoughts if they need to, and then it come before a committee, perhaps an aldermanic committee, for an opportunity for there to be public comment if there was any, concern regarding the individual. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on that amendment? Alder Marchand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my opinion on it will become clear by the time I finish my statement. But I just want to, because I think I need to talk through a little bit, but I think we're taking a step, we're moving this in a little different direction than it's been handled in the past. That's not to say it's not the correct direction. When you think about it, there are plenty of agents of the city that the mayor hires or appoints that we don't approve. And then there are others that the mayor appoints who we do approve. And what's the difference between those two different sets of people? So for example, like a lot of employees are simply hired through the usual employment process and maybe civil service process, maybe not. If they serve at the whim of the mayor, then maybe not a civil service process. And we have no say about them. But some of them we have to confirm. And so there's a different view of some positions versus the other. When we think about people who serve on official commissions of the city, they are confirmed by the Board of Alders. There's probably members of certain task forces and informal groups that are not approved by the Board of Alders. I just can't think of any at the top of my head. Hearing officers, we haven't had those folks appear before Aldermanic Affairs and be vetted and be approved. I think the administration would likely see them as part of the enforcement mechanism of the city, and that's really the administration's bailiwick more than so than ours. And so I suspect the administration wouldn't agree with this. But having said all that, I think that I'm generally in favor of the Board of Alders being more involved in such decisions and having more oversight and having more occasions for direct communication on the record from the administration about how certain things are going and who's doing this work. That's really important. So having meandered for a moment, please forgive me. I am speaking now in favor of the motion to amend. I think before the second reading, we would need to have a substitute amendment that actually spells that out in more verbiage than what was offered this evening, but I think the intentionality is clear, and as such, I'm prepared to vote in favor of the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this, Alder Theodore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I was going to ask that question that
Okay.
you just answered, so
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Alder Theodore?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my only hesitancy is when someone goes through the board process, that adds maybe, 2 months from them starting their official capacity. And so I'm a little curious to hear from Corp Counsel or city staff how disruptive that would be to these processes. It doesn't, from my sense, if each person is only serving once a month for 2 hours, it doesn't feel like there's an absolute necessity to get them on board immediately. But that is my only hesitancy. And so I plan to vote in support of the amendment, but I think it would be valuable to touch base with city staff about that before the second reading. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? Alder Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that I'm going to agree with Alder Marchand. It's really important that we know who is coming and having the ability to make a decision. I think that it is important that the Board of Alders, just like folks come, I believe, through the Legislation Committee when they're going to be on not legislation, Aldermanic Affairs, sorry, it's late. I think it's important that we hear and know that this individual that's coming is impartial and is respectful of the process. So I think it's important. Again, I agree with Alder Marchand that we should definitely have an input. This board has a responsibility to ensure that those that are coming forth and being in this hearing are respected, and that the folks that we have hearing this, there's no concern. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's late and I'm sorry if I'm long-winded.
Any further discussion? A clarification?
Thank you. Just to clarify also, I just wanted to state that I think the extent to which we make the process more formal with us, reviewing and confirming, I think it raises the profile and the legitimacy and respectability of the position, and will also create, I think, more volunteers to do so. The same way we have constituents all the time asking, how do I get involved? What can I do to serve on boards? It hopefully maybe through, Mr. Guzne can become sort of something that one can even apply for, and then to be considered, of course, it's the mayor's discretion. But, to the extent to which it's a concern that there's not people to do so, it can go into the general tent of, volunteer service on behalf of the city that people really know about and understand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think that's an interesting point because I don't know any hearing officers. I don't know who they are.
Thank you.
I don't even know how they're chosen if they apply. And I don't know if anyone in this committee knows. How are the hearing officers actually selected?
I read about it, Mr. Chair, in the newspaper when there's a contested hearing.
Yeah, I don't know. So we're talking about the possibility of expanding the number of hearing officers. And then I think that at some point, are we going to consider a term if they're going to come before automatic affairs? Because right now they're serving indefinitely. And so should there be a term that will be renewed? As it expands, and should attendance, all that stuff that we do with our regular appointees, should that be considered? Or do you just kind of show up when you can for a couple hours and then, I think there's some other things to think about with this. I should have said at the beginning that I am in support of this. I think that it's good for us to see who is saying yes or no to our constituents, our residents.
Yes.
And I think that by adding this piece in, it does raise the bar for them to understand the seriousness. I do want to say this because it's a word that's thrown around a lot and it just kind of gets under my skin. And we use the word volunteer a lot. And these are not volunteers. These are public officials. We are not volunteers. We are elected officials. And with a public official, there comes a certain degree of decorum, a certain degree of professionalism and responsibility. And I think that by adding this piece to it, it kind of raises that bar. So I'm in favor of it, and we need to see that language. Alder Marchand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just say that as we ponder appropriate language to incorporate at the second reading, one thing that we should think about is whether or not people who are currently serving as hearing officers would need to be confirmed. My guess would probably not, since we're going to get a list of all their names. They're already serving in the capacity, so we might want language that says from the date of the implementation of this ordinance amendment going forward, or whatever the wording is, to show that it would apply going forward. And this we intend for it to apply to people who are already serving, but that's a question I think that just needs to be thought through when the particular language is crafted for our second reading. But I think for tonight, the principle of having hearing officers being vetted and confirmed, their appointments confirmed by the Board of Alders is one that I agree with. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Alder Marks, are you going to work on
Yes, happy to do so,
that
sir.
language? And then
Happy to do so.
and whether they're going to be, the current ones will be grandfathered in. We just that word a lot, grandfathered in, and then kind of reminds me of the Parks Commission.
If I may ask, the other question on my mind, and I don't know if speaking about it will help me work it out, so I'll just ask the question and perhaps Alder Marchand can speak about it and give us some thoughts. Residency requirements are on my mind. Whether,
So that would be a separate.
oh, I'm sorry, another,
A separate amendment
Sorry.
should
thank
anyone
you,
choose to make it.
thank you, sorry.
Yep, any further discussion on this item, this amendment?
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, this amendment passes, and we're back to the item as amended.
So just, I guess, a motion to amend to,
You have another amendment.
an additional amendment, please.
Okay.
To add a residency requirement.
So you move to add a residency requirement.
To the hearing officer's qualifications.
Okay. Is there a second? Second, now we're.
Point of clarification.
Mhm.
I assume she means they must reside in New Haven.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On
Resident,
that point, I think I have just thoughts again, as you said, these are people deciding the rights and responsibilities of their constituents. Feels appropriate that they live in New Haven, though, as I could speak, as Elder Marchand did, many people who decide the rights and responsibilities of our constituents are not residents. So I can see it both ways, but was interested in the residency requirement.
I think it's good to know that there's a difference between residency and elector.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think residency would include students who are residing in the city while they're going to school.
Yes.
Or people with permanent work authorization.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of added some discussion to it. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, the ayes have it. We're back to the item, but once again, as amended. Is there any further discussion on this item? I am pondering the age 18. But I think it's gonna fail. So I won't make it. So I have a go-to older, Theodore. I don't know, maybe I'll do it on the floor. I'll have to see who's here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am pondering the term lengths, and I think my feeling right now, and I think I will propose an amendment, is that there should be no limit on terms, but that there would be value in one of the hearing officers to come back to the Aldermanic Affairs Committee maybe every 3 or 5 years and to just check in about the process and the work they are doing. I think it will be helpful for us as a body, and I think it will encourage accountability, and especially as we talk about, I think a theme that came up tonight was there's real value in people developing expertise in these different enforcement and policy areas. And I think these check-ins would allow for those questions to be answered as well. I guess I can propose an amendment or ask how other people feel about that. But yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I guess we're kind of in we are in discussion. Let me just go around and we can just kind of talk before you make a
Sweet.
motion.
Sounds good.
Yes.
So just just thinking about what my colleague from the first ward talked about terms. In some situations, you shouldn't have terms. In other situations, you should. And the way that they do boards and commissions, I like that because it gives a person 9 years to be in a certain role, on a certain board, certain commission. And then they have to get off for a year. And if they want to come back, they can come back. I get a little nervous when we just say, you can do this until you're 105. Now that 105-year-old might not understand what that 25-year-old when they made that certain violation. And you definitely want to put officers in position that has the ability to to understand, not to say the 105-year-old can't understand, but it's just totally different generations. And so in looking at timeframes and as we're looking at this, again, all this conversation kind of has funneled to the boards and commissions track that speaks to all these different things, right? And some of the boards and commissions have electoral rights or residency rights, some don't. And the same thing as far as the time is concerned. So if we did do a time, I don't, again, think that a person should just run off for the rest of their lives without checking in or coming off. Because sometimes you just need a break to get away from it so you can have a better perspective on whatever the situation is. So I just wanted to make that comment before your motion.
Alderman Shan.
Mr. Chair, I think there's a lot that we don't understand about how these hearing officers function and work. We're, I think, getting ourselves in a position to learn much more about it. And maybe that's a side effect of this ordinance amendment. Maybe not the intention of the maker, but it's certainly one of the effects of the maker, is that not only do we want to clean up the ordinance language, but we as a board of alders want to hear more from these hearing officers and understand more about what they do and feel and play the role that we need to play, not just for oversight, but for support in terms of them being effective, because our interest is in the effective enforcement of city ordinances that protect the quality of life and health and safety of our residents. And so I'm reluctant to over legislate it at this point because there's so much more to learn. For example, I don't even have the list yet that I asked for. Of course, I'm not going to have it tonight. But like, before I think about terms or other things beyond just aldermanic, some level of aldermanic oversight, let's get our arms around this phenomenon a little bit more than we currently have. And I think what the steps we've taken already to amend this, I think will protect and advance our interest in being more involved in this area than we have been before. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I would be amicable to figure out terms, but I don't think we could do that tonight. Because I think we would need to look at other boards and commissions to see what that looks like. And I think we do need some input from the maker, from, and to, as has already been said, what the hearing officers, what their role is, more specifically. Like I said, I don't know who any of them, I saw one parking one time, because I went with a constituent to fight a ticket. And, but outside of that, I don't know who they are. So we may, I think it's important to get a little bit more information about them and then figure out how that should fit in. Because that's going to be a lot of, and then what's the term going to be? Is it going to be 9 years total? Are we going to give them 2 years at a time? We're going into a 4-year term next. So is it going to be 4 years? Is it going to run concurrent? I think there's a lot to talk about. We got a couple weeks, right? So we'll see. Maybe we can always make an amendment on the floor if we get all this information. And then if not, we're legislators. We can open it back up and amend it again at any time. I'm not discouraging, but I'm just saying, from what I heard currently, unless you're thinking something else, I would be reluctant to vote on that now because we don't have a format to have that fall into, but I think we should. Alder Theodore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, everything makes sense that you all shared. Thank you. Let's get more information. And I think what would be helpful for me to understand is how in demand is this position currently? If we're strapped for officers, if we have people who have been doing it for 25 years straight and we feel really confident in, and we think the knowledge they've built over time, maybe we don't want to have a 9-year limit and a break. Maybe we can extend that to 15. And I do think some sort of, especially with Alder Marx's amendment, some sort of regular check-in will be really valuable. But I'm open to what that can look like. And so definitely for the second reading, let's try and have the information and be able to put something forward. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think even with that, the question would be, do we check in with the actual hearing officer, or do we want to hear from the department head? Or from court counsel to hear how it's going? And so I think there's still some more thought process that we can do with that. I don't know if we want to drag in hearing officers.
Also, I think if there's 20 hearing officers versus, sorry.
Go ahead, I'll yield to you this on it.
If there's 20 hearing officers versus 100 hearing officers, I think that should dictate the difference. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Okay. I think we should, any further discussion? Alder Marchand.
I think it's great work that the city staff has done to rationalize the language around the hearing officer process for most of our enforcement functions, and I encourage colleagues to vote yes on this item as it has been amended. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The item will be given a favorable recommendation as amended to our board. Our last item, Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I move item 8.
Second.
Have been moved and seconded. Discussion on item 8.
Just to make a statement, I also support this item, as again, they're looking to formalize update existing procedures. Right, formalize and update existing procedures as related to civil citations. And once again, in looking at the overall need to make sure that we are staying abreast and staying updated, and being consistent as far as these things are concerned in dealing with our constituents, I think we do have the responsibility to make sure that the language is correct. So, I support. Yeah, I do support. Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also speak in support of a favorable recommendation for this item. And it was really this item that made me think about wanting to see a list of all the hearing processes and which ones would be subject to this process and which ones would be subject to other processes. Because I just wanted to, when you read through the ordinance, you can kind of come to the list yourself if you read through all those sections and articles, but wouldn't it be nice to have a list? What are all the portions of our city code of ordinances that this particular process would be implicated in, and which ones are not? And so I think it'll be great to get that from staff. But I encourage colleagues to vote yes on this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I too am in support of it. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? The ayes have it. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we dismiss. Is that
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion on adjourning? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstaining? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Good meeting, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry about the late interruption, but.
We'll team you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can you grab all the Michonne's on this? Thank you.
Excuse me.
Pop.
Thank you.
Can I help out?
Thanks.